What's up, community? Welcome back to another live stream. Super happy because today we have an amazing guest. Before we jump into that, I'd like to say how everyone is doing today. Excited to see the same familiar faces as usual. OGL, how you doing? Good evening for you as well. CV Timal, how you doing, dude? Nice to see you. Dan, what's up? I'm doing fantastic. Thanks for asking. Doing fantastic. Pretty much had a very productive day. Now having a nice cup of tea, as you can see, with my Amsterdam mug at the moment. Still didn't find the time to literally set up all my new lighting, but I probably will do that tomorrow, okay? Well. GC3217, how you doing, dude? Stano, how you doing? Good evening for you as well. Live from hospital? What happened, dude? What happened, man? Why would you be live from hospital? I hope everything is okay with you. Dan is saying I've been working in some past browser pull requests. That's awesome, dude. That's awesome. I've seen a lot of activity recently over there. So we are going to be back to that project for sure, because it will be one of the most, important things on past 4 to be presented on Laracon US. So hopefully we're going to make some progress there. GoStar22, how you doing, dude? Nice to see you again. Stino is saying little surgery to my youngest daughter. Thanks for asking. Well, I hope everything is went fine with the surgery, and your youngest daughter will be fine as well in the future. Hadi, how you doing? Hi to you as well. Charles, nice to see you, dude. How you doing? Rizzilis, nice evening to you too. Amazons, what's up, dude? How you doing? Gasov, how you doing? Patrick, Garage, Patrick as well. Senyacha da Silva, how you doing, dude? Ben James, Edgar, nice to see everyone. And yes, today, happy to be here because we are going to talk about Native PHP. You guys probably saw a lot of buzz around Native PHP, especially leading up to Laracon EU. Pretty much, everyone was very excited about 3 things to this Laracon EU, at least from my understanding and from my perspective. One being, of course, Laravel Cloud and the new things in Laravel, but obviously as well, Fusion from Aaron Francis, and one of them was as well Native PHP, which apparently is, from my understanding, a way of building native iOS apps using PHP, the language we love, okay? So today, I thought that, I would investigate a little bit that project with you guys, but bringing the author of Native PHP. So that being said, I'd like to welcome to you all Simon Hamp. How you doing, Simon? Hi, just so happy to have you here. Thank you so much for just coming.
Hello.
All right, Chad, let me know if you can hear Simon correctly. This new tuple setup should be working as expected, but if it's not, just let me know, okay? And yes, we have the Mr. PHP iOS himself, Simon Hamp, with us. So happy to have you,
Mr.
Simon. Thank you, man.
It's so good to be here, man. Thanks for having me on.
You're such a legend, especially recently, with all this mobile development findings coming from to the PHP ecosystem. I have so many questions for you, dude. Okay, I have so many questions.
Hit me.
Before we jump into my tricky questions, because you literally gave me green card to make it the tricky question. So after I ask you, who are you and what Native PHP is about, I'm gonna jump immediately into the tricky questions. I hope we don't mind, okay? Chat, by the way.
Wait, let me just go and get my armor.
Chat, by the way, if you have questions for Simon, let me know, okay? Today, the plan is kind of, make some questions to Simon, which I do have a few, but afterwards, we are going to see Simon doing some demo of Native PHP. Is that all right?
Yeah, we'll try. Let's give it a go.
All right, folks, let me know if you can hear Simon correctly, okay? That's important. Let me know, okay? But that being said, Simon, I want to start directly for those who haven't heard yet. What is Native PHP? Can you give me a brief explanation about what is Native PHP and what it's bringing to the PHP ecosystem?
I'll try. It's quite tricky because there's a lot to it. There's a lot of moving parts, but in its most simple form, it's trying to bring the power of PHP and especially Laravel to building desktop and now mobile applications. So you might have done this with other tools. You might use PHP as like an API, your Laravel API that supports your
Mm-hmm.
applications, but the application itself is built in something else entirely.
Hmm.
And have always been like, I really just want to build this stuff in Laravel because I love using Laravel.
Mm-hmm.
It's so easy for me to build rich apps with the HTML, CSS, JavaScript, and of course PHP on the back end. So why can't I do that for desktop apps and mobile apps? And I've been on like a hunt for projects that would do this, and none of them over the years have done it very well. And I eventually decided, well, I'm just gonna have to do this myself. So that's how it's come about, and that's what it's about. Hopefully that was enough for now.
Yeah, that was enough. Meanwhile, I'm going to share here with the audience the Native PHP is website. As Albex, thank you so much for the resubscription 2 months through Prime. I really appreciate your support, chat. By the way, if you don't know me, chat, if you just arrived, my name is Nuno Maduro, PHP and Laravel developer. I love what I do, and I'm streaming every single day at 9 p.m. Today, I'm here with this gentleman, which is the creator of Native PHP, which effectively is bringing Native PHP development to mobile applications, all right? So, chat, I'm going to share with you the Native PHP is website, which apparently at the moment, it's kind of split a little bit with desktop apps and mobile apps. Am I right, Simon?
Yeah, that's it. There's you have to kind of go to the desktop docs and you have to go to the mobile docs because they're going to be quite different.
Interesting. All right. So, chat, I just sent you the link to the mobile version of Native PHP, which hopefully brings you directly to this introduction page we are currently seeing. So, Simon, I'm going to move here into my PHP Storm, which contains all the fire questions I have prepared for you, okay?
Ooh.
Yeah, so you have obviously already answered one of them, which is what is Native PHP, so everyone kind of knows already. And the first thing that jumped to me, Simon, when I saw you for the first time talking about this project, and probably you can clarify this not only to me but also for the audience here, is Native PHP is more than a web view, right? So I would assume it's the PHP version of React Native. Can you confirm that to me?
Yeah, I think it is. I think that you would basically use this in place of React Native eventually. You might have seen Marcel has actually put a bit of a demo together where he's used React Native on top of native PHP for mobile and kind of done something really crazy and magical and wonderful there. So I think there is even space to use some of these tools together, which could be very, very cool, and unlock some really cool stuff. But I would say for now, my view on it is I want to use HTML, I want to use CSS, I want to use JavaScript on the front end, let's say, and I want to use PHP on the back end to do the functionality, the business logic of my app. And I just want all of that to go onto the device and run on the device. So in that sense, yeah, it kind of could replace React Native.
React Native. Before we jump into that last sentence you'd said, because you said something like in run on the device, okay? Before we jump into that, can you clarify to me if at the moment Native PHP have access to native features of the iPhone, such as the menu or any kind of native feature that you would typically have from React Native, for example?
Yeah, so right now it doesn't have all of the features of something like React Native because it's very new. Like I really only cracked this nut about 6 weeks ago. So this is very new. And there's a long way to go. There's a lot of stuff that I want to build. But the principle of where we're at is that we can have PHP running on the device and it's calling native device features from PHP. So your Laravel application can do pretty much at this stage, my view is it can do anything that the device can do. We've just got to create the connection between PHP and, in this case, Swift. So yeah, anything that you want. I'm like the stuff that I'm really excited to build out and I'm working on at the moment is things like push notifications, in-app purchases, There's like people have asked me about, can we do widgets with this? Can we do all sorts of other little integrations? You know, like even the things of I can tap and hold on the icon on my home screen and the little menu comes up. Can I do that? And it's like, well, yeah, you will be able to do it. You can't do it right now, but eventually you will be able to do all of these things. So I just the door is like wide open for all of this stuff.
Interesting. Sure. So you managed to actually crack one of the small components already, and the goal is that over time you will be adding a few more to kind of close the gap a little bit between native PHP and effectively React Native, right? Interesting. Interesting. Yeah, so that kind of answers one of the questions I had. Literally trying to understand how, how possible this all actually is. And I'm very glad that actually anyone managed to crack that. So congratulations for being, exploratory in this kind of land. We need more of that in PHP. So congratulations. And chat, let's clap for Simon right there already, because we need more people like Simon on the PHP ecosystem. People who are willing to spend their free time literally exploring these solutions. Before we jump to the next question, Pick and Flow, thank you so much for the resubscription and gifting a subscription as well to Transcode. I really appreciate that. Bonkers, thank you so much as well for the subscription on Twitch. I really appreciate your support, folks. You guys are just unbelievably awesome, all right? That being said, on the chat, someone is making the question about how Spain is treating you. You are not from Spain, are you?
No. But I do live in Spain. So, yeah, Spain's treating me really well. I mean, I've put on a lot of weight since I moved here.
Interesting. I didn't know you're from Spain. Maybe are like, close to each other, because I'm from Portugal, of course. I can probably drive into your place, if I get into some PHP development.
If your car can go over the water, then yes. I'm on the Canary Islands.
So gotcha.
A little bit far away.
Gotcha. All right, so let's move here into some other question I had. You mentioned run on the device. What are we talking about here? We're talking about effectively having PHP FPM running. We're talking about PHP Artisan Serve. What are we talking about
That's
here?
a really good question. So no, it's neither of those things.
Okay.
So on iOS, you can't actually have like separate processes within your application. Everything has to just be part of your application. So we can't spin up, PHP FPM instances or processes. We have to boot up PHP from fresh every time a request kind of gets made to the web view. So there's a little bit of, I'll say magic, and that's a fluffy way of saying it's complicated, but there's a bunch of stuff that I had to do in Swift and in Laravel to kind of make this work. But the web view calls a custom URL, which the iOS application and Swift code actually handles for us. So it doesn't hit a web server. There's nothing running, but it kind of still looks like what a web server would do. It's just very simplified, and it's not waiting around for requests to come in. It just does things when you tell it to do things. So that happens, and it basically boots up the entire PHP engine. So the PHP engine is compiled for iOS. That was the one big nut to crack, and then bundled into the application. And then because it's all just C code, it's a C library, it just runs as part of the application. So the PHP engine runs, and then it does all of the Laravel stuff. And then obviously Laravel just responds with the HTML, and we just push that back onto the web view. And so then it renders the page. It's quite smart, in my opinion. It works really well. But there are some problems with it, because we're having to boot PHP up from scratch every time. So it's a little bit slower than if you had PHP FPM processes just waiting around to serve requests.
So my understanding from what you just have said is that it's not a typical server like PHP Artisan Serve or Octane or a PHP FPM would be. However, you are kind of simulating a real server behind the scenes with that magical approach you just talked about. I have a question. Does it still feel snappy? it still feels fast like local serving applications, or do you feel there is some milliseconds here which does feel a little bit laggy, or it's just fast?
It depends on your device. Like if you've got one of the newer devices, I think it feels kind of snappy. I'm running this, like the demo that we'll do in a bit, I'm running on an older iPhone, like an iPhone 11, and it is a bit slow. So I think it can be a bit laggy, but also I'll just preface all of that with we haven't done any optimization at all yet.
Yeah.
So there's loads of room to
Improvement.
improve on all of that. So yeah, it's gonna get better, but it isn't ideal right now, I'll say. It does feel slow sometimes, especially on older devices.
Interesting. Okay, I hope like both Simon and the chat forgive me for making these questions already, because this is really the stuff I'm interested about this native PHP approach. And I feel like some people curious like me are also interested to know some of these inner bits, some of these details behind the scenes, to see how much far are we already with native PHP. So Simon, I hope you forgive me for going, so deep already on some of these topics. You mentioned,
I love it.
You love it? All right. I hope you do. You mentioned something like compile for EOS.
Yeah.
I think I know what this means, but can you elaborate on this?
Yeah. So, PHP, let's start there, right? We're talking about a C application. If you didn't know that's what PHP is built in, that is what PHP is built in. It's a C application. And for PHP to work on your platform, so let's take Laravel Herd, for example. The PHP that's inside of Laravel Herd is compiled for your platform. So if you're on Windows, it's compiled for Windows. If you're on a Mac, it's compiled for a Mac.
Interesting.
And the same needs to be done for iOS. So you have to compile it for iOS.
Architecture,
and although,
right?
Exactly, it's the architecture, it's the platform, it's the operating system's features, it's all of these things combined. And so we have to do that. And as far as I'm aware, no one has really done that, like for up-to-date PHP. People have done it in the past for iOS, but they haven't done it since like PHP 8 came out and all of these kinds of things. And the process for doing it is quite tricky if you've never compiled C applications before. And kind of nobody seems to want to touch PHP from that world, because they're all like, ew, PHP. I'm like, no, I want this. So I went and figured out how to do some of that.
Interesting, dude. That's just awesome. That I can already relate in imagining some of the problems you had over there, like libraries not being supported by the architecture, and so that does feel very, very interesting. Jumping here, so you just answered that it does feel snappy on newer devices, but no optimizations yet were done. So potentially here there is some space to crack, but also I don't know if the project will become open source. I assume it will, and when it becomes open source, probably other faces on the PHP ecosystem would probably help you out potentially in some of these things that are probably still yet to solve. Moving to another question, if you don't mind, drivers wise, because typically if I ship my app to Laravel Cloud, for example, I'll probably would use something like Postgres or MySQL, but then use Redis for cache if I want to. How does it work on a iOS device?
So most of the extensions in PHP that you would normally have available, they're just not compiled for this version of PHP. And I've kept it very limited for two reasons. One, it keeps the footprint of the compiled PHP, because also it's worth noting that it's statically compiled, which I don't know if you want to get into that, but that's a whole separate thing as well. But it's statically compiled, which means everything's compiled into this single library, and that makes it bigger. So you have this, it's about 20 something megabytes of PHP binary code effectively, that gets bundled into the app. And so the more extensions that you have compiled in, the bigger that's going to be. So you don't want too many. it also is like a bit of a potential security risk if you've got all of these extensions. I mean, that's true if you're running PHP on a server as well. You shouldn't have all these extensions, especially if you're not using them, because they're just a risk factor. But yeah, I think we what my goal was basically to try and set up what's the minimum that we need for a decent Laravel application to run. And it turns out you don't actually need an awful lot within PHP beyond its core stuff. But things like connecting to a database, for a solid example, you probably should never do that remotely from an iPhone application, right? You wouldn't do it with the database credentials and connect directly to the database server over the internet. You would do it through some kind of API proxy layer that lets you do authentication and rate limiting and all of those lovely things. And you do that through some backend language, like Laravel, PHP, could be something else, but you wouldn't hit the database. So there's no need for a lot of the database drivers, except for SQLite, because you can run a SQLite database on an iPhone. So you can just have the file in the iPhone storage, and it will happily read and write from a SQLite database. And that's like very natively supported on iPhone anyway. So yeah, that's baked in. You've got a database. We run migrations as soon as the app boots up and all sorts of things. So that's cool.
Oh my God. Thank God you have SQLite support. That's the only thing I need, dude. It's the only thing I need, dude. Like, I can literally have caching off sessions, like literally everything from SQLite in Laravel. So I'm so glad that you mentioned that SQLite is literally just working, because it just answers like kind of all my needs. I have a question from the chat here, Simon. There is currently any plans for Android devices? If yes, have you explored anything on that, or?
Yeah, that's in active work right now. So it's coming, and I'm hoping that we'll get that in a few weeks. I mean, it took me a good long while to figure out all of the iOS stuff. But the good news is that I think having done that, Android will be easier. So we're well on the way to having Android support very soon.
That's very interesting. I'm not, I don't have an Android device, but I can imagine that a lot of people are interested to have Android devices. So I really appreciate that.
It's the number one question I get about it.
It is?
Yeah,
that's crazy.
Everyone wants Android.
So you kind of already answered to me the question of have a native way to access some of the device's features. $1 million question is, does Apple Store accept these apps?
Well, the really good news is I actually built an app before my talk at Laracon EU to test this theory to see if Apple would allow it. And I released the app to them. It went through their review process, and it took them just 3 days to approve the app. And so the app went live on the stores sometime in January.
That's crazy. So
which was amazing.
Yeah, so it does accept the app even with PHP built in inside.
Yeah.
That's that's pretty much like the $1 million question, right? Like literally, if Apple accepts all of this, just awesome, dude. I have one more question before we jump into some demo. When all of this will become generally available, if it will be?
So it's available right now, but if you mean like, is it going to be open source? It's not open source right now. It's because of the work that's been involved and the work that's still required, and the fact that at the moment there's really only just me working on the iOS stuff. It's a premium package, and you can get access to it today. You can go to nativephp.com/iOS and read up about it and get access to it. And I think you can use it right now to build apps and release them on the store. So I think that's super valuable. What I've committed to with doing it that way is it's on a business source license, and the business source license, which is a thing, I didn't know about it until a little while ago, they kind of encourage you. I think they essentially force you to open source what you're doing at some point. And so the time limit for that is like 4 years. So that feels like a long time from now, but trust me, I think that's going to come around very, very quickly. So we're going to commit to making it fully open source within that time frame.
Interesting. Thank you for sharing that. Interesting. I do have a question from the chat coming from Matt, which is, Simon, with what you know now, what is the most oh my god, I'm so difficult reading right now. Simon, with what do you know right now, what are you most looking forward to tackle in the future?
Ooh. There's so many things. But one of the things that I've been thinking about for many years at this point is, if you have Laravel on the app side, so let's call it the client side, and you have Laravel on the server side, what things could you do that you weren't able to do before? And I've already explored some of this stuff, not just theoretically, either practically as well. And I think there's a huge opportunity coming ahead of us for, if you know Laravel and you want to build apps this way, which I admit not everybody does when they think about using PHP on a mobile device. But if we can get to a point where it really makes sense and it's got lots of features available, I think the next thing is like having Laravel on both sides is just going to unlock efficiency from a developer experience point of view that we've never been able to see before, when you have to build mobile devices and server-based applications to go with them. So I'm really, really excited to start exploring that and sharing more of what I've been doing on that front.
Dude, a great way of finalizing this topic of questions. I did grab your Twitter handler. Are you most active on X at the moment, or any other social medias, by the way?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I still am most active on X, but I flick around between that and Blue Sky quite a bit. So I kind of prefer Blue Sky. I think there's a much better vibe on there, honestly. But
yeah, I don't know yet.
I can't ignore X because like there's just so many people on there.
But Simon, I was wondering if you can literally demo a little bit of, some of the magic behind this project. What do you think about that? It's a good idea.
I can. I might have to talk through some of it rather than demo code too much, but I can show you like the app and stuff. So, shall I share my screen? Would that work?
Go for it.
Let's do that. There we go.
It's perfect.
Can you see the phone?
Yeah, I can see the phone. I can see your camera on the right, and my camera just below your face, which is awesome.
Sweet, perfect. It's working then. So this app, this is actually running on my phone. So, well, another phone, because I'm using my real phone as the camera. Because I've got a really bad setup. But this dummy phone that I'm using is the one that I use when I gave my talk at Laracon, and this is the app that I showed at Laracon. So there's nothing really new here at the moment, but this is a Laravel application that's being rendered on device. So although it seems to show that I'm connected to Wi-Fi, I'm actually not. I have no. Let's try going to. So I've got no internet connection.
No internet connection.
But this is a web view. That's all. There's nothing. There's no Swift UI or any other UI library rendering this code. This is HTML in a web view, and it's using Flux, Livewire, Tailwind, all the stuff that I'm used to using, the stuff that I love using, and I can just like tap these buttons. This phone's a slow one because it's an iPhone 11. I can tap these buttons at the bottom, and it just flicks between these tabs. And it's running PHP for every single one of these taps, which is very cool.
It is.
So Yeah, we can do stuff. You won't be able to see this, obviously, but I could tap that button and the phone has vibrated in my hand.
Nice.
Tap this one, just like use Face ID, those kinds of things. It's cool, huh?
Oh, so you are literally like calling the Face ID feature from
PHP.
Natively from PHP. That's crazy, dude. Like doing a login with Face ID.
Yeah.
Oh my god, that's awesome, man.
Yeah. And even this one, which, sorry, you're going to see my face twice, but...
This is awesome, Chad. Let's clap for Simon. This is actually very cool, man. Oh my god.
It's cool now.
It is. Also feel like a huge opportunity for, I think I don't know if you will build some of those, but because this concept of building mobile components, not talking the ones that natively use your, the device features, but literally like styled, look like effectively mobile apps, you know what I mean? We don't have any of that in PHP, do we? I don't think we do.
I mean, no, but then you you don't necessarily need it in PHP. You just need a UI library that you're comfortable using. So if you're happy to use something that does this, then you can do that. But I think it would be very cool if somebody did like a mobile and not just like a mobile web stuff for PHP, but like proper mobile app component library for mobile, for PHP.
It would have to be built on top of native PHP, I would assume, correct?
Not strictly, but I mean, if you wanted to use the connections to all of the native functionality, then you'd have to expect that was going to be available.
That's crazy. Chat, this is absolutely awesome, right? A lot of people are mentioning Flux and how Flux will give us like amazing look in this sort of mobile apps, which is pretty cool. Camu is asking, I think I have made you this question already, but Simon, how does it feel the performance compared with something like native Swift UI?
I mean, I'll tell you quite happily that this this app on this phone, which as I said is an iPhone 11, is a bit old. It feels a bit slower than when I run it on my own personal phone. So I'm tapping these, and then you can't really feel it but let's say tap, and it was maybe 200 milliseconds delay before it actually flicked the screen. As I say, on newer devices it's better, but there's a lot of things that we can do to improve that. So I think when you're on a new device with a improved package of this, which will come in time, it's going to be great. I think it's going to feel very close to native. It's never going to be as fast, just because it's not all of the raw sort of close to the mel code, but because we've always got to run through PHP. But we can get it. I think we can get it very, very close to feeling like a proper native app. So I'm really excited to push that.
Yeah, I mean, React Native does feel native almost. So I do feel like once you actually spend some time looking for optimizations, you probably can get the same, same feeling as native bare metal apps, pretty much.
Yeah, I expect so. It's just a case of putting in the effort.
Are you able, Simon, to show some kind of, the native functions? Are you prepared for that? If not, it's fine as well.
Yeah, I can do. So I'll just prefix this with what I can show you is going to be a little bit different to how it comes out of the library in the next couple of weeks, because the library itself is like a layer on top of these functions. But we can have a look at this.
Which editor is this one, by the way?
This is just PHP Stone.
Interesting. It does look a little bit more, UI-wise, it does look cool. Like the top navigation and everything.
I've just gone into...
presentation mode, perhaps?
Yeah. I don't know if you can see that menu, but
I can,
presentation mode. Which just like clears everything out of the way and makes the text bigger, which is great. Sorry, I've come to the wrong thing. I want to go to the demo, that one at the top. So this is part of what I gave on my talk, and I'll just run through these really quickly. So this is a Livewire component. It's really simple. There's nothing, if you use a Livewire, I'm not going to go through all of what Livewire is doing, but this will feel very comfortable to hopefully those of you that are used to that. And here you can see this function that's a PHP function, but it's not a PHP function that you will ever have seen before because it's brand new. I created it, and it's this native PHP _ vibrate. And what that's doing under the hood is exposing the device functionality to PHP. So when we call this function, it's literally going to vibrate the phone. So it's just this like one line, very simple function call, and it's doing the stuff on the device.
Very cool.
Same with the camera. And this one just returns the image data. I mean, it's base 64 encoded string, so we can just output that into an image tag.
Just display it. Yeah. Nice.
Yeah. And again, the biometric stuff, it's just a simple function call. And then we get a Boolean value back from that one. So we can just chuck that into a variable that we want to use. And that's really it. I mean, those are the ones that I demoed. There's going to be a lot more to come in the next few weeks. But as I said, the API is going to be a little bit different because these are the very low level functions that are coming straight out of the custom PHP extension that I've built to work with this. And the native PHP iOS library is like, a layer of abstraction on top of that, which is going to give us all the IntelliSense, IDE support, and all of the nice things that we want, and a really like cool namespaced UI. UI? What do I mean?
Yeah,
a namespace library, of code. So
it does make sense. Simon, I do have a question, which is partly bringed a little bit from the chat. You mentioned, not totally related to this, but you mentioned at some point that you do have this simulation of a server behind the scenes, right? How does it work exactly with stuff like assets, for example, where you have like you're serving a CSS or serving a JavaScript, which on a traditional server you would serve that in your public directory, for example. Yeah. Does it just works here, or I'm missing something?
No, it doesn't just work. I had to write some code that would kind of sidestep the PHP engine for those requests. So we have to do a little bit of trickery to make it available to the web view in the right way and make the Swift application aware of the fact that it's an asset request and not just a standard PHP request. So yeah, there's some special like trapdoor that we use to not call PHP for those.
But it does work, which is awesome. Which is way more than cracking something like this for the PHP world. It does look something like, it's just a web view, but I can immediately see that you have cracked way more than just a web view on this project.
Yeah, definitely.
How many of you are on the team at the moment? Is just you, or do you have anyone else working with you?
So for the iOS project right now, it is just me. And for native PHP as a whole, the desktop stuff, it's still kind of just me. Marcel's been involved on and off. But one of the great things there, because the desktop side is fully open source, is basically there's been tons and tons of really awesome contributors that have come out and helped get that moving. So I feel now with that, I'm really just kind of shepherding the project in the right direction. And there's a bunch of other people that are doing some really good work. And I'm super happy about that, because it couldn't be at that stage without their support and contributions.
Right.
So yeah,
so
it's awesome.
You financially found some time now to actually put the time into this project, which obviously requires a level of attention, which typically someone who works 8 hours a day, it's just difficult at the end of the day, probably. So with this, you
Yeah.
are able to. How many hours a week are you putting into this, if you want to share?
Right now, probably about 20.
Wow.
So I can't go full time on this still, even though I want to, just because I've got clients that I have committed to. But yeah, I mean, eventually I think I'll definitely go full time on this because it's more than just a passion project. I think there's a huge business opportunity here as well, and not just for me. I
Mhm.
think for lots of people in the PHP community who see this as a valuable piece of technology. I think it opens the doors to lots of things for lots of businesses. So
Right.
I'm super excited to explore all of that as
So
well.
basically, PHP houses who are already, probably selling websites in PHP, and they now will
Mhm.
be able to serve and to provide native, mobile development without
Yeah.
have to learn basically other technology, which
Yeah,
is
I
which
mean,
is
you're
awesome.
just bringing in a package. So you bring in a package, read the docs of the package, and now you're a native app developer,
Uh huh. Uh
which
huh.
I don't think anybody's been able to do before.
So I do have a question here from uh, Goofer, which I think is the guy behind Whiskey. If it's not, I apologize in advance. He is asking the following: everything is in Electron now, but Tauri is in the roadmap. Can you confirm this to me?
So actually, just today, I wrote an update on the native PHP GitHub discussion board where I
Mhm.
post most of my updates about the whole project. Um, Tory kind of it got parked. I was working on it last year a lot, and that's when I kind of stumbled into doing this stuff for iOS, and I shifted my focus to iOS because I thought it was more exciting, honestly.
Mhm.
And yeah, so Tory is like parked, but Tory would really, at the moment, it would only be for the desktop stuff as an alternative to Electron on desktop. It hasn't
Oh,
really
right. Doesn't make
got anything to
any.
do with the iOS stuff.
Oh, right. All right. Doesn't actually is connected even to this EOS mobile development project. Which, if you allow me, I do think that native PHP for mobile development is way more fascinating than native PHP
Mhm.
for desktop apps.
Yeah, I agree.
So
Unfortunately.
yeah, I don't know if it's unfortunately or not, but
Yeah,
for example, I have never tried native PHP for desktop, but I will try this stuff once
that's
it's
fine.
actually available.
I'll let you off. I won't hold it against you.
Because this stuff really looks awesome, like literally mobile development with
Yeah,
PHP. I'm very excited
it's
about
very
this.
cool.
Great question from Peter right here, Simon, which
Mm.
is how do you handle PHP updates?
So for like new versions of PHP, did you think that's what that question's about?
I think that's question is exactly. For example, I am a user of your framework, and
Mhm.
and I make a mobile app. I put it on App Store, and suddenly we have a new version of PHP, which I would like to start using. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Would that just come out on the new updates of the app? How exactly does it work?
Well, this is the kind of the thing with doing native PHP for desktop and mobile is one of the things that we had to kind of figure out was how do I ship PHP with my app? Because you can't rely on PHP existing on the user's device, certainly not on their mobile device, and maybe not on the desktop either. If your app is going to be used by consumers, or customers of a client, for example, they're probably not going to have PHP on their computer. So how do you ship PHP with the app so that they've got it and it just works? Um, and essentially that means that PHP itself becomes a dependency of your project. And that just means you can update PHP whenever the hell you want. Like you're not waiting on somebody else to figure out the latest version, or maybe they update before you're ready and now stuff
Hmm.
doesn't work. So we can do basically if the project has been updated to use the latest versions of PHP, which we will do very soon, either after they're released or as they're about to be released. We'll try and keep as close to that as we possibly can. Um, then you can use whichever version you're most comfortable using, as long as it's supported, for the life of your project. So, I think we'll probably do a typical sort of the 2 actively supported versions of PHP for the life of their support, and just keep on upgrading with PHP for you. So you kind of won't need to worry too much about it.
Very interesting, dude. Very, very interesting. Yeah, man, this looks awesome. I do have already an idea for you offering very good auto completion from these functions I'm seeing on the screen right now. I do have some ideas. You probably also have them, but I do have some ideas here. I think, yeah, man, thank you so much, man, for coming and to literally talk a little bit about this. I really appreciate. I'm gonna try to one of these days actually, try native PHP and let you know how does it feel. Probably when I want to wait a little bit for some more development until you feel like it's truly ready for for actually starting put apps on App Store. But it does look awesome. So congratulations, Simon. And the PHP world needs more people like you.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. It's been awesome.
All right, Shad. That was it for Simon. Simon, I'm gonna hang up the call. Thank you so much for coming, dude. Yep. And I catch you next time. All right.
Bye.
Wow, dudes. Native PHP does feel cool. It's also way more than I thought. Literally, I knew that native PHP was a lot of work, but I was not expecting that Simon had to do the simulation of a server, had to literally recompile PHP just for iOS development, and also had to literally code every single component to close the gap with something like React Native. So it does look awesome. Native PHP. Is any of you already using Native PHP, by the way? I'm curious about that. Let me know, chat. Just by the way, for the rest of the live stream, I want to kind of watch this interview. I don't know if you saw, but literally today, Asel just published a video with interviewing Taylor Otwell. It's a 30 minutes interview, so I don't know if you can watch all of it, but let's see how it goes. Oh, thank you, Simon. You're awesome, man. Thank you so much, dude. So, chat, the promise is made. I'm gonna try native PHP here on the live stream, okay? So, I think it would be kind of fun to actually develop a full mobile application using, native PHP here on the live stream to see how far can we go with it. I think I'm gonna wait a little bit to have the community using a little bit native PHP, but then we are going to see how it goes. Oh, Thomas, you already tried PHP native for desktop? That's awesome, man. Eric, basically, Simon said that native PHP, it does feel a little bit less snappy than bare metal applications, but over time, Simon will start working on performance improvements to kind of the engine, to kind of the, the core. But yeah, chat, I hope you guys enjoyed this this small session with Simon. For the rest of the live stream, I kind of want to see this talk, not this talk, but this interview that Taylor Otwell have given to Asel. Okay, if you don't know, Asel is kind of the main investor on Laravel at the moment, kind of the company helping out Laravel on this new venture. So I kind of want to see this talk. They interviewed Taylor Otwell, and I want to see this. You guys excited about this? Let me know. I'm gonna try to not stop the interview too much, but so this is not like a react. I literally want to see this for the first time as well. Okay, you guys first let me know how the sound is, okay? Let's see the sound first.
I started to wonder if I was viewing it in totally the wrong way,
Right.
and that to not swing for the fences, that is like actually sort of like selling out the community that had been on this 13-year journey.
Welcome.
How is the sound? Is the sound okay for everyone? Oh, that's awesome. All right. So that being said, let's get started. Do not hesitate on just, chatting a bunch during this interview. I'm literally curious about this interview. So again, this interview is to Taylor Otwell. The interview was made by Assel, which is the company helping Taylor out in this new Laravel journey in 2025. And I'm literally curious about this interview. So that being said, let's just get started.
I started to wonder if I was viewing it in totally the wrong way,
Right.
and that to not swing for the fences, that is like actually sort of like selling out the community that had been on this 13-year journey.
Welcome to Spotlight On, a podcast about how companies are built from the people doing the building, one messy, exhilarating decision at a time.
Welcome to Spotlight On. I'm Miles Clements, and I'm here with Laravel's founder and CEO, Taylor Otwell. Taylor, I think everybody knows, but for those who don't, what is Laravel?
Yeah, so Laravel is an open source PHP framework that I created way back in late 2010. I started working on it. I released it in 2011. It's basically a starting point for building any kind of web application. Could be booking system, invoicing system. People use it for all sorts of crazy things. Even cool people like Milwaukee Bucks, Harvard Art Museum are using Laravel to build all sorts of applications.
So take us back to the beginning. You mentioned you got started on this in like 2010. What were you doing at the time? What were like the earliest days of Laravel?
Yeah, so I was only a couple years out of college, actually, and I was working at a large trucking company in Arkansas. I was writing enterprise.
This is how every huge opportunity got started.
It's just crazy. Taylor mentioning that he was working for this large truck company. So literally having a regular job. So at some point, Taylor actually had the regular job just like everyone else. That's just crazy.
This is where it all starts for everyone. I was writing a lot of enterprise code, a lot of .NET, a lot of COBOL, which goes, back into the 1960s. I routinely worked on programs that were written before I was born.
So Cobalt in .NET. How was literally, what was your first language? I'm literally curious about that. My first language, my first ever language, let me even think about this. I think my very first language was literally in university already, and probably must have been just C, basically, because I was learning C from classes, you know what I mean? But a bunch of Java as well in my first year as well. Yeah, Java, basically C as well. Because on university, you kind of learn all of them. My first job was with PHP, though.
It was not rare at all to see that. But I really just had I always wanted to build my own business. I had just random startup ideas, like a lot of founders have in the beginning. And I needed a quick way to prototype those ideas. And
you gotta give me, what was a bad startup idea? Like what was?
Oh gosh, I wanted to write like a billing system for lawn care companies.
Yeah, we would not have funded that.
Yeah. But I needed a quick way to build these ideas and at least see if there was anything to them. And so I built Laravel as a way to build web applications really quickly in PHP.
And then when did you realize that you were onto something? You'd cycled through a couple of ideas that you didn't pursue full time. When did you know you had something?
Yeah, so like I said, I worked on Laravel for probably 8 months to a year before I released it publicly. The first day I released it publicly, I think I got 4 stars on GitHub. So it was definitely not an overnight sensation, but a lot of people did latch on to it.
Jesus. Laravel, when it first came out, had 4 GitHub stars. 4 GitHub stars. That's crazy. So when you guys release a new open source project, and it has 3, 4 GitHub stars, you are literally starting in the same way that Laravel did.
relatively quickly and became just incredibly passionate about the framework, almost to like a fanatical sense.
It's fixed, Stino. Thank you. Appreciate that.
To where now you have people with Laravel tattoos and
We'll get to that.
Yeah, but I think people were just ready for a breath of fresh air in PHP, and Laravel arrived kind of in the right place at the right time to take advantage of that.
Do you remember what some of the early use cases were that you observed in the wild?
Yeah, so this is kind of a small world story, but one of the first companies I ever heard use Laravel was actually also in Arkansas. And they were another trucking company in Arkansas, up in Northwest Arkansas, near Bentonville. The Pan Transportation is the company. And they were on Laravel 1.0 commercially in the business.
So you've brought up, okay, we're like 2 minutes in, and you've brought up Arkansas twice. So I'm just going to go straight there. So you started this company in Little Rock.
Basically, yeah.
You basically have bootstrapped the entire thing from Little Rock. I think for a lot of founders out there, like the activation energy to go start a company just seems really intimidating. And people think like, I've got to go get this really high quality Series A, and I probably need to move to Silicon Valley. And there's all these other things that I have to do. Yet you kind of built this empire from your home in Little Rock. Why'd you bootstrap, and why'd you make us come find you after all these years?
I think back when I first started Laravel, a lot of it was just, that's where I was. And I think if I would have been out here, I almost fear I would have been intimidated to some extent by so many people are doing awesome things in San Francisco. And in Arkansas, I didn't know anyone else building a business. And I didn't really get distracted or intimidated by what other people were doing because I wasn't out here. I didn't know them. So I just really focused, kind of laser focused on Laravel, and really never let anything distract me from that once I got started.
If you had to start something else again tomorrow, would you bootstrap and do it the same way?
Not necessarily, I think. And I think part of that is because of the good relationship we've had between Laravel and Excel, and seeing how beneficial that can be. I think some people, it's probably up to personal preference, but I think a lot of ideas, there's just great value in what venture capital can provide, especially great firms like Excel, and who they can network you with and the advice they can give you and help you build a business together.
Right. What were the advantages of bootstrapping? I mean, one of the things that all...
That's so true. Like literally, when you are connected with people, with people from Silicon Valley, you just, you get access to some information that literally can make your company progress so much faster. Especially now that we have the help of these people, we can have so much more talent on the company, and we can move so much faster. I'm literally so glad that we are, being helped by Assel, basically.
Always struck me about you is just like the level of original thought. Like you don't have a lot of the preconceived notions that there is a lot of great that comes from Silicon Valley, obviously. But there's also just a lot of templates and things that are perceived as best practices. And I just always saw this authenticity in you in the way that you were building the company. Do you think there were any advantages from doing this kind of off the grid a little bit?
Yeah, I think it does go back to what I said about just distractions. Like when you're building a business, there's so many rabbit holes you can go down and get distracted by rather than just making the product really great.
Right.
And that's what I did for so many years at Laravel. That's what I still am most passionately obsessed with at Laravel, is making sure that Laravel Forge, Laravel Cloud, Nightwatch are just amazing products.
Right.
And I think if you build amazing products, things tend to work out. If you build amazing products for customers and they love to use them, things usually go well.
Right.
And I think, with
not everyone has this though. Not everyone have literally the vision to understand what people actually want. And I do feel like on the early days of Laravel, Taylor did have a great vision to understand what exactly the Laravel in the PHP community needs. So, I think there is a reason why all the Laravel products launched so far, meaning Envoyer, but also Forge, but also Vapor, there's a reason why all of them were successful. And one of that reasons is because Taylor was behind it. You know what I mean? So not everyone is capable of this, literally understand what people want. So I'm glad that we have, a CEO like him, basically.
With the bootstrap thing, I think bootstrapping is great and it gives you a lot of maybe personal freedom or lifestyle freedom in how you run the business and how you want to structure things. I think looking back, if there's anything bootstrapping held me back from, it was sometimes you are more personally incentivized to benefit yourself rather than the company, if that makes sense. Taking ambitious risks are not really in the bootstrapper DNA. It's a little bit more of a conservative playbook of building kind of a sustainable business and not really swinging for the fences in many cases, at least. And I think that's one, if I had to look back, that's one thing that held me back in the bootstrapped era of Laravel is not building the products that I think our customers deserved because they were so ambitious and there's a little bit of risk involved when you build ambitious products. And, but I'm happy that we're finally tackling those now.
Yeah. When you think about like, not just the evolution of Laravel, but like the evolution of Taylor, the founder, do you feel like you needed a couple of years of just getting your confidence and seeing the community take off and seeing the product adoption, like that gave you the sort of the faith that you could like go build a business around it?
I think so, yeah. And in many ways, I was always just solving my own problems to some extent. Like I built Laravel because I needed a way to build web applications quickly. I built Laravel Forge, our first commercial product, because I needed to create servers quickly. And I thought other people probably had this problem too. I've always been a little bit pessimistic when I build products. I remember when I first built Forge talking to my wife about how I hope it just kind of covers like our house payment or something. And, within like a month of launching, I was making more on Forge than I was making in my day job. And now, like I'm full-time working on Laravel and life changed.
I think like Laravel 1 was released in 2011, but then Laravel 2 probably came out 3 months after. And I know that up to Laravel 4, things went very quickly, meaning that we had Laravel probably 1, 2, 3, and 4, and in the space of probably 1-2 years. Then there is a huge time we spent on Laravel 5, mainly because we adopt romantic versioning, which is a little bit different from semantic versioning, where we had things like Laravel 5, Laravel 5.1, Laravel 5.2. Effectively, between those, between those numbers, 5.1 and 5.2, that was actually major versions, You didn't have changes on the skeleton, but there was breaking changes between these versions. And finally, I think it was like 4 years ago, Laravel adopt semantic versioning again. So we start to have literally Laravel 6, 7, 8, 9 super fast. That's why now we are literally going to Laravel 12 already. Okay.
Just quickly.
Right.
So yeah, it's been an interesting journey.
Who cares is saying I wrote my own MVC application, vanilla PHP, no third-party frameworks, and it's not open source. Oh, really? You should open source your vanilla MVC framework. I think everyone at some point have wrote their own framework. I actually think it's a good process, like discovering a little bit. Why wouldn't you want to build your own framework? Because it's a lot of work. So going through that process is still important to literally understand how routing works, how validation works. There's a few things you can learn building your own framework, okay?
You can't talk about Laravel without talking about the community. In the early days, like what were the first signs that this community was as active and engaged as it always has been?
Some of the early signs were when I first launched Laravel, we had sort of like discussion forums that users could go out and participate in, ask questions, give feedback. And there were people in those forums like 24 hours a day. It seemed like they just lived and breathed Laravel. And I think there are certain open source projects, typically frameworks like Laravel or like React or like Vue.js, where your tool has such an impact on someone's daily work because they're using it 8 hours a day at their job, to where if you're like,
Oh, Stino, see you tomorrow, dude. Thanks for coming today.
Making their work life better by this tool you've created, and it's actually
Pekin Floyd is saying, I learned that why Laravel is good after writing my own framework. Yeah, I really feel like writing your own framework is always a good experience, and it will teach you like why things like Laravel are so powerful. What's up, Patricio? Welcome to the live stream. We literally finished interviewing Simon, and currently you are watching together, not reacting, but watching together an interview that Assel did to Taylor Otwell. It's not about code, it's more about like products and trying to understand how Taylor is feeling with this new experience at Laravel, being CEO of a company with already 50 people. Yeah, you lost the Simon interview. However, you know, all my live streams are on my YouTube channel, chat. You guys know me. So I literally publish all the live streams on my YouTube channel. So I'm going to share that with you. So you can go there and watch later if you want to. Okay. And by the way, chat, if you just arrived, my name is Nuno Maduro, PHP and Laravel developer, also Laravel core team member. And today, after interviewing Simon Hamp of the Native PHP project, we are watching this interview together that was made to Taylor Otwell, the creator of Laravel, the creator and founder of Laravel.
Joy for them to use every day. That's like a huge impact to have on someone's personal life, I think.
Right.
And I think when a tool has that kind of impact, it's like natural to feel, you just feel like very attached to that tool. And that's where you see these like kind of fandoms develop around open source tools, where it's like, especially for PHP, when I think back to 2010, 2011, a lot of PHP developers were contemplating jumping ship. Like, hey, like JavaScript or Node or Ruby or Python has all these cool tools and people are doing interesting things. They're building new frameworks, new open.
Does any of you actually was during this phase of the PHP world on 2010, 2011, that actually PHP, I cannot say that PHP was dying, but PHP was getting old literally in 2010. So do you felt as well in the same way? Like literally if PHP was about to die and potentially, you know, considering jumping into other ecosystems like Rails, which was very popular back then. Do you also felt that way or not? Chris is saying, change the stream title. I would if I know how to do that, dude. I have no idea how to do that. David Hill is saying, currently designing Laravel, listening to Nuno's talk about Laravel, who is watching Taylor talking about Laravel. Oh my God, that's hilarious, dude. You also need to come to my stream one day, all right? Once you are a little bit less busy, I want to have you on my stream as well. Dan is saying, regarding that phase in PHP on 2010, saying the following. Yes, for sure, I was using Fuel PHP in Rails. It was super popular. Almost made the jump. I'm glad you didn't, and you are here with us, all right? Rodizio is saying, yeah, also, you know, almost made the jump, which is interesting. Dan saying, but then stumbled into Laravel, which is awesome.
Source libraries, and it feels like PHP is kind of stagnant. And I think Laravel just like kind of came on the scene at the perfect time, to where I remember when I was participating in like PHP, you know, like chats and stuff online, people were like, maybe I should go learn this or go learn that. And when Laravel came out, it was like the whole discourse shifted to like, oh, we have something cool now that like we can actually build web applications with. And I think a lot of people, it was such a breath of fresh air for them that they just developed like a strong attachment to like this tool that had brought them so much more productivity and so much more enjoyment to their daily job.
The Laravel community is known for being very kind and supportive, like also ambitious as hell, but very positive. And like, there's just so many negative communities out there these days. How did it get started? How have you made it so positive? Like, you're not going to like this description, but is it fair to say that, you know, when you were quietly bootstrapping this company, the community was sort of built like in your image, like it's very supportive and humble?
Yeah, it was actually intentional from the very beginning. And I remember when I first released Laravel, actually having, you know, an intentional sense of direction of what I wanted the community to.
I think I changed the stream title, by the way. Just did that on Twitch and YouTube. Thanks for bringing that into my attention, all right? Someone on YouTube is saying quite the opposite. I actually started using PHP in 2010. Interesting. So same story as me, by the way. I also started PHP during that phase. I think I started PHP 2011, 2012 with CodeIgniter and He Framework 2, but around that phase as well. Bruno is saying that I have made the jump to JavaScript also for the backend, but I returned it because I missed a good framework like Laravel. I have seen a lot of people saying that, by the way, that literally came back because there is nothing like Laravel in the other ecosystems. You're not the first one telling me that, all right? Pick and Flow is saying that there was a lot of talk about PHP being terrible in 2011 while I was still just starting, but I've tried .NET, and then PHP is so much better in my opinion. I think .NET became better over time, but I remember like .NET being bad a few years ago.
Look like, and a lot of it was driven by, I felt like everyone at some level wants to be a part of something. It could be a sports team or a community service project or an open source project. And an open source project is a really interesting concept because anyone in the world can come together and participate and contribute to this project regardless of where they live in the world, what their background is, what their even like socioeconomic status is. They're all contributing to like the same goal.
Right.
And it builds this like deep sense of community. And I felt like if I could foster that and give a place for people to belong and contribute and have fun together building a cool project, that people would just latch onto it because people want that somewhere.
Right.
And Laravel has been a place where, you know, thousands of developers now have found a place to hang out and contribute and be a part of something, you know, much bigger than they might otherwise be a part of.
Right. Yeah, I remember you said something early on, which was, and I'm going to botch the quote, but it was like, look, when I go on Twitter, I read about all the cool kid projects, and it seems like the world is migrating to these really cutting edge open source frameworks. But like when I go out into the real world, the world runs on PHP.
Yeah.
And,
I mean, it goes back to the very beginning, you know, like.
You guys heard of this? This is coming from a guy who sees a lot of apps, especially in Silicon Valley, but also around the world. And he's literally saying that the world runs on PHP. So this is literally a lesson for just be a little bit careful about Twitter, because Twitter and, you know, this cutting edge social medias, they make you think that everything is running on other technologies. The reality is that the world runs in PHP and MySQL. It's just the reality. You know what I mean? So you need to be mindful about that. When you hear technologies that are just, you may think that actually they will just take the world by storm and everyone is using them, when the reality, some people are trying it, not actually using it in the real projects, okay? Roberto is saying that we still use CodeIgniter 3 with Eloquent at work. CodeIgniter was good, dude. I remember CodeIgniter, you know, all that pagination helper and things like that. CodeIgniter was good, dude. Pick and Flow is saying, I also think that Laracast was a big boost for Laravel. Never had learning resource that was that good in other tech before. Yeah, Laracast is awesome, chat. That's for sure. Laracast was also the place where I have learned PHP, okay? Bruno is saying that we have another inspiration called the world runs on PHP. That's just true, dude. Like literally. The world runs on PHP and MySQL. That's just the reality.
The company I was working at runs on COBOL. You know, so which is much older than PHP. And, you know, there's just a broad swath of software out there. The majority of software probably runs on tech that maybe in Silicon Valley would be considered not glamorous.
Priest is saying that according to Google, 43% of the websites of the internet run in WordPress, which is crazy just to think about that. But then we have the remaining of the internet, which probably still runs in some version of PHP. What's up, Victor? Welcome to the live stream. First time chat. If you don't know me, my name is Nuno Maduro, PHP and Laravel developer. I'm also Laravel core team member, and I'm also Portuguese. You said good night in Portuguese. I'm also Portuguese.
Right. You know, but it's just the reality is that's what a bunch of the world runs on.
Right.
And, you know, so I'm here to serve those people.
Right. Well, and the other funny.
And yeah, like literally PHP, the world runs in PHP, and also like most of those websites were made when PHP was not, you know, as good as it is today, with things like Laravel, with things like, you know, the recent features of PHP. So imagine now in the future, I've foreseen that PHP will become even bigger.
Take though, as you remember the my partner Casey put together with Dan Levine our open source, you know, conference last year, and we had this fun dinner. It was a bunch of open source founders, and I think it's some of the most thoughtful, forward-looking open source founders in the world. And Kramer stood up and he was like, "Go around the table, everyone say, if you had to start a new company today, what is like the language of choice, and you can't pick your own." And people threw out all these ideas, and it was like, well, not great for mobile, not fast enough, hard to, you know, not enough, the talent pool's not deep enough. And then at the end, the room was kind of like, well, shit, I guess we'd use Laravel and PHP, you know, and that's like such an encapsulation of, you know, why you guys have been right to stick to your knitting.
Yeah, well, I agree with them. It would definitely be the fastest way for them to get started. Yeah.
Right. What was the first time that you realized there was like commercial interest in Laravel? Because you started building and then the community grew very quickly, and there's this huge, vibrant open source community around it. What was the first time you thought, you know, maybe I should charge for a commercial version?
Yeah, I mean, I some of those early Laracons, people would come up to me and say, "Hey, thanks for building Laravel. Our company's making $50 million a year using your framework." And I'm like, if you're making that, maybe there's some money to be made for me, you know, in this story.
Right.
Back when Laravel was purely open source and I really wasn't making any money on it at all.
Right.
This is just crazy. Like, you know, I haven't, like myself, I haven't built anything as sizable as Laravel, you know. But of course, sometimes I have this popular open source projects like, you know, OpenAI for PHP, or even Past PHP, or even many other, you know, tools that are used on the ecosystem. And I do know that they are literally being used by companies who do millions of dollars, you know. And it is crazy that some of those companies who are making, you know, this huge amount of money, sometimes they donate literally $0 to all of the open source work they are using. They don't have to. It's kind of the principle behind open source, right? Especially these MIT licenses. But still crazy to think that, you know, I'm literally being paid as a regular software engineer. I do make some money out of donations, of course, but that these companies making, you know, billions of revenue using, you know, the time, my free time, basically. Dan is saying that I agree. It feels like Laravel's success is giving PHP as a rebirth. I do agree with you. Absolutely. Roberto is saying that Facebook was built on PHP as well. In Wikipedia still uses it. Yeah, and those are massive projects. By the way, Facebook uses a tweaked version of PHP, which apparently now is worse than PHP itself. But I know that Facebook have kind of, you know, forked PHP at some point with Hack. But obviously, over time, just regular PHP became faster than Hack itself. Pick and Flow is saying, if companies never donate to open source, the open source devs will have to give up writing apps. Everyone needs to pay rent. Absolutely, you know, I'm fortunate enough to say that, you know, I work for Laravel, of course, and I'm passionate enough to actually spend my free time developing some of these tools. But I do know some developers who probably are not making enough money from their daily jobs, and they are making tools who are used by millions of other peoples and are making, you know, a huge amount of money to companies. So
kind of stories got my wheels turning a little bit.
So you knew that you had this incredibly popular framework and there was this very vibrant community forming around it. You made the decision.
Let's move here.
Things in the
So here we are starting a segment where Taylor talks about moving from a programmer to a CEO. So let's just, you know, realize a little bit that Laravel was a company with 4 to 6 people literally a year ago, or probably a year and a half ago, and now we are 50 people at Laravel. So obviously Taylor can no longer be a programmer, but he's more like a CEO. Let's see, the transition, how the transition would have been so far.
And like random outreaches from a venture firm. Like, I've never asked you this. What were you thinking when you started hearing from us?
Yeah. So, I mean, I would get emails like that probably weekly. And I usually didn't know which ones were legit, which ones were sort of shady. And so I would usually just hit the old delete button on the keyboard. But, when we actually got in touch was when I think Excel started attending Laracons,
Right.
and kind of getting face-to-face, introducing ourselves. So there's a little bit more personal connection there.
Yeah.
And actually Excel was the only firm that actually did that and put in the legwork to do that. So, I appreciated that. And that's when I think we actually got a real conversation going.
What caused the change? Was it like a conversation with Abigail? Was it looking at like the business plan? I doubt it was that. Like, what caused you to want to do it?
I think it was just like a deep reflection on the entire journey that I'd been on so far. And the original reason I had hesitance to raise money or do anything like that was I feared that the community would see it as sort of like selling out in a way. And the more I thought about it like deeply, I started to wonder if I was viewing it in totally the wrong way.
Right.
And that to not swing for the fences is really the selling out like position, to like continue on the trajectory I was on. I had basically built most things
If you don't understand this, because you probably are not native, swing for the fences means basically take this investment and take this help from ASO, okay? So what Taylor is saying is that not taking this help from these experienced people, but also not taking this money to make Laravel grow would basically disappoint the community. It's what he is saying, okay?
wanted to build and had the ability to build with the team I had. And the company was making good money.
Because obviously running a company with 6 employees is a little bit different from running a company with 50 people, especially very talented people. So we can do so much more and so much more faster. Okay.
I was making good money. And to me, to coast on that trajectory, that is like actually sort of like selling out the community that had been on this 13-year journey, rather than build awesome new ambitious products like Laravel Cloud and Nightwatch that are going to take more resources and they're going to be harder than anything we ever built before. But they're what the community that's been on this journey with us so far, and honestly been on this journey with me personally, so far, what they deserve and what I think we need to give them.
Now, I'm going to ask for feedback, which is a dangerous thing to do on a podcast. But I mean, look, I think the gist of our pitch was you keep doing exactly what you're doing. You control the company. You're the CEO of the company, raising money. And you might say, hey, overall, this is worth doing, but this is something you should be
Laravel Cloud comes out next week.
Aware of. That's tough. Like, what's been the hardest part of it?
I think it's just a little bit of a mentality shift, going from waking up every morning and sort of doing what you want to do, but maybe not pushing it too hard and just keeping the business going, versus like, let's make Laravel one of the best companies in the world. That's just a much more ambitious goal.
Right.
And so that comes with things that are different than bootstrapping. It comes with, more people to manage. It comes with a few more meetings, although I only really am up to maybe like 4 meetings a week usually, which is...
Yeah, it's next Monday, basically, okay? 24 in the morning.
Really try to pick my battles. Like, I really stay off your calendar.
Yeah. But, I feel like I needed that to some extent, I needed a new challenge. I needed to grow in new areas and maybe push my comfort zones a little bit, just to grow myself professionally, personally, and, as a business or as a product builder, as a CEO, I needed that fresh challenge.
Yeah.
I do think, Clem, like literally this serious investment we are having also will make, other companies look a little bit different to the PHP ecosystem, So I think that will help. What's up, Zuli? Welcome to the live stream. Nice to see you, dude. prices. I cannot share yet the details regarding Laravel Cloud's pricing model. I do think that Taylor talked about that on Laracon EU. So go check his talk. And I do think like we do have some pricing details over there. I can tell you that we have a sandbox plan which starts at $0. What's up, Caffeine Dev? Nice to see you, dude. How you doing? Yeah, modern PHP is so good. By the way, chat, tomorrow we are going to keep working on my new talk about modern PHP. So if you want to see a little bit, you know, how modern PHP looks like, I'm going to literally talk about, you know, Reactor, Paint, all the cool stuff. So come tomorrow, okay? Marco is asking how developers make money on open source projects. I can tell you my experience. So I currently do some money out of open source projects, okay? I would be lying to you if I told you otherwise. So the way I do money from open source is literally, you know, if I go, for example, to the PastWiz website, you see companies literally helping me out on PastPHP. So this is companies sponsoring PastPHP development, paying literally a monthly fee to supporting my work on PastPHP. Probably they're using PastPHP themselves. So they do pay me a monthly fee. So I make money out of this. I'm also making money out of, you know, my streaming content. So obviously companies want to support my work, support the fact that I do open source. So they sponsor me through the streaming. I also feel like I still make money out of Pinkery. So Pinkery was this social media I've built under pinkery.com. And people literally, you know, they kind of pay a monthly fee to be verified on this project, but also to have access to the source code. At the time, Pinkery wasn't fully open source. So people literally pay to have access to the source code a little bit more early than the others. So this is how I make money from open source. Like I remember when I first released PastPHP, it was literally, I told people that if I get 75 sponsors on GitHub, I'm going to open source Past right now. And people literally, you know, they helped me out and they offered me 75 sponsors through GitHub. So this is how I make money from open source. But if you expect that donations will just, you know, each your inbox, it doesn't happen. You know, you literally need to provide some sort of value to people, but also to companies, like having, you know, the logo, but also those sort of things, you know.
I mean, for us, it was completely mutual because we were like fascinated outside in, but I don't think you really understand what's special about Laravel until you do go meet the community and you go to Laracon. And so, yeah, it was cool. I mean, we did it in Nashville, we were in India, we were in Portugal, and like you really feel like the metrics speak for themselves. But then when you understand the substance around it, like that got us really.
Dude, it's so true. There is nothing like Laracons. I don't know if you guys have been in Laracons before, but I can tell you that I have been in a lot of conferences out there. In the energy on Laracons, it's just like nothing out there. You know, you can really feel the energy from people. You feel welcomed. I've met people all around the world on Laracons, and it's always a blast. Every Laracon I go, even Laravel Lives, basically, it's always a blast. Caffeine Dev is saying, I got a pull request into PAC to set the minimum PHP version to 8.2 to be in line with Laravel 12. Do you think it's a good idea? So I think it's you know, it's a suggestion. However, I don't have plans of using PHP 8.2 over there because I don't use PHP 8.2 myself. Okay, so every time I build something, it's for myself, and if I don't use PHP 8.2, I will not put support into that. Marco, you're welcome for the clarification. I appreciate your questions always. So Ferris is asking if it will be a free trial on Laravel Cloud. Well, the sandbox is for free, so you can literally try Laravel Cloud. I do not know if that represents a free trial. You will have to see for yourself. Transcode is asking, hello Nuno, I have a question for you. I'm looking forward to make a site about everything that involves building projects with Laravel configurations. Tendency, filament, starter kit, and blah, blah, blah. My idea is to create the forum and tutorial type of website. Do you think it's possible to do this and use the free tier on Laravel Cloud? I think that if you have serious traffic on that website, so I think Laravel Cloud's pricing is very well done because it's basically almost for free for people who are indie hackers like I am, and you are probably. But if you are a big company, you will also have to, to have access to these premium features. You will have to pay for them. So I think the Laravel Cloud pricing is just very well made. Pick and Flow is saying, Nuno, I know you have no time as is, but offering a course on testing for sponsoring would be a cool idea. Yeah, maybe, I'm going to be honest with you. I'm not actively seeking for ways of making money. You know what I mean? I totally understand that you are not the first person telling me that. Like, literally, can you produce a well-made course about testing? I simply not actively seeking of ways of making money. I like to be with you guys right here, so that's kind of my goal is, have a great job at Laravel, make Laravel as best as it can be, but at the same time, just having fun outside of Laravel. And streaming is one of those things I can do to have fun. Also making sports, get myself healthy, and no plans for making a paid course, at least for now, okay? I appreciate that you would just send me your money, but no plans for it, at least at the moment.
Excited about it too.
Yeah. I think the difference, like when I go to Laracon, when I go to other conferences, I think one of the stark differences is that at Laracon, most people are actually watching what's happening on stage, whereas like you go to a lot of tech events and like most people are like in the hallway or like on their laptop or like just socializing, but with Laravel I feel like everyone's just like locked in to what's happening on stage.
So to go into that process a little bit, so I think it took us a little while, but we like convinced you to come out here and we're like, get to know us, get to know some of the folks around the Excel family. We introduced you to David Kramer from Sentry.
I do a lot of technical product thinking. He brings a really great business mind to the company that in many ways complements, and it's people that complement me. And,
he's talking about Tom, which is currently the president of Laravel. So Taylor Otwell is the CEO, but you also have Tom, which is the president of Laravel at the moment.
Goes all the way up to our COO president, Tom Crary, who came over from Pond 5, who I think is a great complement to my skill set. I do a lot of technical product thinking. He brings a really great business mind to the company that in many ways complements my more like technical product skill set. So I think that's been a great mesh. And just honestly, everyone we've brought into the company almost has been totally awesome to work with. And that's been something that Tom and I have been super aligned on, is maintaining Laravel's great culture of people that just want to come in and make an impact and build.
Yeah, I do think that, having a design team working with us, but also having an infrastructure team working with us, it's such a huge difference. Like literally having these talented people who actually know what they are doing, not only design-wise, but also, infrastructure-wise, really feels good. Having people who their skill set is literally that does feel good.
Awesome products for a great community. And that's what we've been focused on with every hire, basically. So it's been an awesome journey building up to this amount of people. I'm sure we'll hire more in the coming year. And, I just loved working with these great people so far.
Well, the other thing that's been cool about the people that have come into the company is that you've really hired a lot from within the community. So these are people with whom you've had years.
Yeah, we hired a lot from our own network. And so we kind of knew that quality was coming. Transcode is saying, yeah, I understand. I'm not a big company. The idea is for help a lot of other devs to use Laravel and for me to like you with your packages. My company's idea is in the other side in a different account. I'm working with Laravel Forge at the moment. Laravel Forge is awesome. I am happy to read that. Zoli is saying that, you know, that past is actually a name of a real city. Dude, I know that past means a lot of things in various different languages. Like literally, past means a lot of things in different languages. When I first released past, everyone would come to me and would say something like, oh, do you know that past means this very mean thing in my language? Or do you know that past actually means this thing which you probably don't want to correlate with past? And I was like, dude, I just don't care. Like having a P before the T, you know, of test past, it's just so good that I'm no way I'm putting that aside. Pick and Flow is saying, my manager says having a team that works well together is his number one priority. You can always learn tech skills. Being a jerk is hard to change. That's true, dude. I'm glad you bring that topic on because, you know, soft skills and just being kind is something very important to learn. Literally, like you can be the best developer in the world, but if you are a jerk, you mean like literally zero to me. You know what I mean? So I feel like, first of all, I want to work with someone who is like kind, who is keen to learn, who is literally, you know, a good person to be with. And if he is like strong as well in his own domain, that's a good thing, you know. But being kind, being a good person, being someone who is fun to hang out with, being someone who is, you know, cool to have a beer with, it's like very important in my opinion. João Souza is saying, check the platform, the other platform, the commentaries. Which platform are we talking about? Camus is saying that many people died to past. Oh yeah, the disease, you mean? Yeah, absolutely. It's, you know, another meaning of the past word. Absolutely.
Of, you know, experience.
João Souza is saying TikTok. Oh yeah, a lot of people speaking from TikTok, which is awesome. Desert is asking, with ChatGPT and DeepSeek, etc., are programmers still relevant in 2025? Absolutely, like absolutely. I think, you know, the traditional developer who does small things like only like very tiny bits on HTML, probably, you know, you will find LLMs like ChatGPT doing that for them. However, software engineers, literally people solving problems, that's something that AI still cannot do at the moment. But definitely, you know, there is a lot of room for developers, that's for sure. João Lial is saying, can you watch my portfolio? I will do that. I may consider that, literally doing a live stream where I check people's code. I'm going to keep that not for today, but potentially just literally having a bunch of you sharing with me your GitHub profile so I can, you know, tell you what I think about that. Could be a good idea for another live stream.
Some you've known personally, but you've known their work product for a long time. And so again, everything that you've done is just very authentic to the Laravel community. I want to talk about Tom a little bit in a way that's going to make Tom blush. So Tom Crary, as you mentioned, joined the company as kind of your like business partner. He was one of the first outside.
It's crazy that, you know, on Twitter, but also like in our own developer bubble, we don't speak a lot about Tom, which is the president of Laravel. I just wish you guys known Tom, because he is such a smart dude. Like, he's a leader like Taylor, you know, but he kind of knows things that Taylor doesn't know. You know, Taylor is a very good, you know, product wise, but also understanding what the community wants. But Tom is like this president beast who just knows everything about business. You know what I mean? So I kind of wish that more people knew Tom. I should interview Tom on stream, dude. That could be a good idea, you know? That could be a nice idea, indeed. Yeah, I could potentially check. I don't think like checking GitHub profiles will be fun, but checking code from other people, you know, could be potentially interesting for sure.
Business hire. And outside in, it seems like the combination has been awesome, and you two work together really well. How important is that first hire, like that first executive hire, when you're going from being, a small project to like an aspirational company?
I think it's actually way more important than I realized even when we brought Tom on. It's something I've only seen in hindsight as we've worked well together and have found alignment in how we would like to run the company and what we believe in and what we think is important. And I think looking back, you could definitely go really wrong with that. And I could see how it'd be extremely painful.
Right.
So I'm glad it's worked out for us. But I think in hindsight, I actually did not realize actually how important that was going to be. And, it's been great because Tom is very complimentary to me in terms of what I bring to the table, what he brings into the table. Like,
exactly. As I was telling you, Tom brings a lot of business experience, while Taylor can literally just keep doing whatever he does very good, which is literally leading the product, having the vision for the community, for Laravel as well.
For example, like if we wanted to use a piece of software at Laravel to build cloud, a vendor or something, and they gave me a price, I would be like, oh, great. That sounds great. Right. Yeah, sure. Where do I sign? Tom would be like, no way is that the price,
Yeah.
And so we're just different in that way, but it's in a very complimentary way that I think is great for Laravel.
Right. Yeah. I mean, you guys only hire humble people, and Tom is the embodiment of that. But I've also just observed that you do excel when you can like sit in a quiet place and think and write a manifesto. And then Tom sort of has this way of amplifying that to the rest of the company. He in some ways makes you scalable. Yeah. And it's just been an awesome partnership to watch.
Yeah, it's been great.
Let's talk about the future for a second. So you did this awesome Aaron Francis conversation where
I do think like you wouldn't be ashamed if I were reviewing your code on stream. Like I talked about like how important is exposing you guys to criticism. Okay. So if you give your code to someone else review, you would get some insights from that person, probably learn from that, that is, you cannot know if you are building good code if you don't have anyone to review it. So if you work alone. However, if you give your code, to other people, like I would do on stream, probably I'm gonna, you will capture good insights from me, just like I have good insights when I'm giving my code away to other people. Rebit is asking from Twitter if it's wrong to use AI to a full project. It's not wrong, assuming that you know what tech in stack is being used. Is not wrong. Literally ask AI to bootstrap and to build the skeleton of your project, and you will take over from there. That's not incorrect. I do feel like a lot of code in the future will be built this way. Literally, you will stop writing code with your hands. You probably will be a prompt engineer where you basically just, you guide the AI to write the code for you. I feel like a lot of us will be building apps in the future like this. Pick and Flow is saying criticism hurts, but I wish my team was harsher on my pull requests so I could get better. They are just too nice. Yeah, I feel like sometimes when you're working in the project and the project already contains a little bit of bad code, it's a little bit easy to get in this mindset that, all right, the code is already bad. Let's just continue to ship bad code, But yeah, maybe it's a mentality thing that you can literally fix that, and just, set something on stone, which is, all right, starting today, we're going to make sure that every code we ship to production will be tested, and you put that in place, and then you move forward. Starting tomorrow, we make sure that every new code that goes to production needs to pass on static analysis, and you small by small, bit by bit, you basically make sure that your code will be modern in a couple of weeks. Ferris is asking, random question, what design pattern should I learn or should we learn to keep in mind as a Laravel developer? Oh, dude, that's a hard one. I would say like single responsibility principle is a good one. So when you're working with things like the request layer or the response layer, make sure that lives only on the HTTP folder, for example. if you have something like an action which creates this very specific logic or business domain, make sure that gets fully isolated from the console layer, fully isolated from the HTTP layer. It's kind of difficult to explain, but just make sure that every time you deal with your request response object, you do that only on the controller level, and you pass down to the action only the things like the raw objects, you know what I mean? So single responsibility principle is a good one.
You were going sort of step by step on outlining the vision for cloud. I'm not going to ask you those questions.
Rebit, you can watch me on my YouTube. It's literally the best place, I think. I'm going to post here all my socials on the stream. So basically, I'm on YouTube, youtube.com/nunumaduro. I'm also on Twitch at the moment. So you can go from twitch.com/enunumaduro. Those are the main streaming platforms I'm using. But I'm also on YouTube, where I do stream I do publish videos every single day at 1 p.m. By the way, yesterday, I don't know if you guys saw, but I literally published a video about why using something like aim function returns null sometimes, and how can you fix that. So this is a good one, by the way. A lot of people make me this question and fall into this trap, but I'm publishing videos every single day at 1 p.m.
Because I won't do it as well as Aaron did. But like, fast forward 5 years, like what are the possibilities for Laravel?
Yeah, so if I think 5 years in the future, we want cloud to obviously be the obvious choice for shipping and scaling, Laravel apps for shipping and scaling, just PHP apps in general, let's say. I think there's worlds where we make it just the best place to ship any backend web application. I think that's something we can explore. But we're definitely going to nail that Laravel story first, because I think Laravel is the best way to build web apps.
Right.
So I think if people are starting a new web app today, I want it to be on Laravel, and cloud's going to be the best place to ship that. And we'll explore what else might be great to ship there in the future. We want Nightwatch to be providing amazing insights in those Laravel apps, but not only providing the insights, but also potentially fixing things in your app. So one of the benefits we have at Laravel is we build the framework, we build the platform for shipping it, but we can also build tools for monitoring it.
Right.
And we can use a lot of the data and intelligence we have there to really make intelligent suggestions on how you should build your app, best practices, security fixes, performance improvements, and we can just PR those straight to your repository on GitHub and ship them out to cloud for you. So I think we have lots of really interesting ideas for how all of this could tie together to just be an awesome experience for building web applications. And in 5 years, it's going to be fun to look back and see, what all is in there, but I think it's going to be really exciting.
The thing that's been really cool for me to watch is just the center of gravity that the company still has. Like, again, we just had a board meeting.
All right, folks, this was a good one. I feel like there was a solid interview from Taylor. Kind of understanding a little bit this business perspective without all this help coming from Aso. I hope you guys appreciated this interview just as much as I did. Let's give one or more two questions, and then probably end the live stream. Marco is saying, one more question. What is the best way of learning? Is it to watch tutorials on websites like Laracasts, to watch videos in code along, or to build your own projects? I feel like Laracast is a great help. Okay, literally. I have learned pretty much everything I know from Laracasts. So Laracast is definitely a way of learning things. I do think that at some point you need to literally put in place all of your learnings. I feel like building a project while you watch Laracast is probably a good thing. You know what I mean? Because nothing replaces like real experience. So the first app you are going to build, there will be mistakes, there will be problems, but you will learn from them. Okay, if you don't spend time on those mistakes, you will never actually learn from them. You know what I mean? So you need to feel the pain a little bit. So Bruno is saying, are you aware that Developers Live site is down? Yes, I'm aware. I took the site down. No plans to keep working on that website, so I took the site down. Marco, I hope I have answered your question. So basically, you really need to feel the pain in some of those things that do not work. So building a project It's definitely a way to go while you have this parallel help of Laracast to tutorials. Okay. Like Roberto is saying, building things is the way to go. I agree with you. Dan is saying, Nuno, you did a video how much you like the action pattern in how to use actions on Laravel. Would you use actions in place of repositories? I don't use a repository pattern on Laravel. I do think it's a waste of time. We can probably elaborate on that a little bit on the next live stream. Okay. But yeah, I hope you guys appreciated the live stream today. We have Simon Hamp talking about native PHP, and we have this relaxed bit of watching the Taylor Is interview. We'll be back tomorrow, and tomorrow we are going to keep working on my modern PHP tooling talk. Okay, so obviously I'm preparing this talk for LaraCon Live India, and I do need to prepare the talk a little bit more. So tomorrow we are going to find examples for all this tooling we love, like Reactor, PHP Stand, Pint, Pack, and more. I need your help on that, and I kind of need to know what to say during the talk. So I'm counting to you guys to help me out. Thank you so much for being on that side. Okay, I'm going to rate the Primagen, I think. I was just checking who is online. Primagen is online. So I'm going to rate Primagen here on the live stream, so you guys can keep watching someone doing, some coding and talking about coding. Thank you so much for being on that side. Catch you guys tomorrow. Peace out.